Is Elsen Sangu quietly planning an exit from Eşref Rüya? Or is social media playing tricks on us again? Tonight, you're tuned in to Turkish series Stars, where whispers turn into waves and every click can set the whole sea in motion. The week began with one of those tiny online tremors that ripple into a full-blown earthquake, an unfollow, a batch of vanished photos, and a crowd of fans reading the tea leaves like their lives depended on it. One simple tweak on a profile, one tiny digital shrug, and suddenly the cast and crew of Eşref Rüya found themselves under a harsh spotlight they didn't ask for. Because the person behind that shakeup wasn't just anyone, Necip Memoli, the actor breathing life into Girdle, the character whose pulse is practically tied to the show's momentum, abruptly stopped following official accounts tied to the series and wiped out posts connected to it. The moment that happened, timelines exploded. Did this mean Girdle was set to bow out? Was there trouble on set? Or was this just another internet storm acting like thunder when all it had was mist? As the buzz surged, one name inevitably became the calm eye of the hurricane, Elsen Sangu. She carries that leading lady stillness like a shield, the kind that makes even wild rumors slow down and think twice. Viewers adore her, industry insiders respect her, the camera is helpless against her glow. And now, with Barış Arduç standing right beside her, steady, grounded, the kind of presence that lifts the pressure without a speech, this couple exudes a rare, unshakable aura. Even so, fans demanded answers. If Necip Memoli made that move, what did it signal? Would Girdle's path be cut short? Or was something deeper unraveling behind the scenes? You could almost hear the keyboards click in unison as fan pages compiled timelines, circled dates, and compared old posts, insisting that these clues always mean trouble. Some swore it had to be narrative, perhaps Girdle's arc had reached its final beat, maybe his journey had been planned to end in a shock that would spin the story in a new direction. Others whispered that the chemistry on set had hit a fracture point, that even the smoothest teams can slip when schedules stretch and egos collide. And then came the gentlest theory of all, the one social media rarely forgives, the personal purge. Maybe he wanted a cleaner grid, a new aesthetic, a fresh start on his page with no hidden message at all. But innocence rarely trends. Within minutes, speculative headlines were everywhere. Reports that sounded like they came straight from a secret corridor on set multiplied by the hour. Is Girdle leaving? Major split at Eşref Rüya? Tension erupts behind the camera? The more unverified the claim, the faster it traveled. Somewhere in that rising tide, it became inevitable that Elçin would be drawn into the center. Because at times like these, fans look to the leader. A sentence from her can be the soft click that resets the whole machine. And at a brand event? Where the cameras were waiting for her long before the crisis even started, she did exactly what people expect of her, only in the way only she can, composed, punchy, and oddly warm. No fire-breathing denials. No defensiveness. She stood there, luminous yet casual, and let the noise deflate without making the crowd feel scolded for caring. She brushed off the panic with a few breezy lines that said more than they spelled out. If anything serious were coming, you'd hear it from us first, she hinted. And with a playful sparkle, she tossed in a zodiac wink that turned headlines into laughter. If there's a wobble, maybe blame those Gemini mood swings. It wasn't a dig, it was charm, pure and simple, the sort of quip that turned a spike in anxiety into a meme for the night. That soft touch was the tell. She wasn't just holding the fort, she was choosing not to turn the moment into a show. But if you think that was the only plot twist, you must be new to this business. As chatter about Necip's account changes reached its high point, another current pulled attention in a totally different direction, Elçin's music talk. That one little answer, why not? To a question about recording an album was enough to spin the conversation clean off its axis. Suddenly, the trending topic wasn't whether the set was falling apart. It was whether Elçin would add a new chapter to her career, crossing from acting into music. The timing was uncanny, but the effect was unmistakable. The hint of a new artistic path, the thought of hearing that voice on a full track, the sweet possibility of a dual talent flourishing, it all cast a new light across the hour. And if we're honest, who better than her to keep both fields in balance? Of course, she made it clear where her heart sits for now. Acting comes first, she reminded everyone, kindly but firmly. The stage lights and camera calls still top her list, and any step into the studio would be measured, thoughtful, and true to the work she's building day by day. Industry whispers claim there have been offers for a while, that producers would happily open their doors for her. But she's not the jump just because you can type. She's selective, mindful of the rhythm of her career, and that discipline is one reason viewers trust her choices. It's also why the mere idea of a future album didn't feel like a stunt, it felt like a promise that she'll do it right or not at all. Meanwhile, what about the world inside Eşref Rüya, the one that matters when the cameras roll and the call sheet fills every morning? If a real fracture exists, it tends to show up in the murmur of crew talk, in lights that stay on longer than they should, in call times that drift into frustration. But that's not what the echoes from set suggest. What we're hearing is that scenes are landing on schedule, that the team is in sync, that the mood has been unexpectedly buoyant given the noise outside the walls. Some even say the uplift comes straight from the energy of the leads, Elsen bright and assured, Barış a quiet anchor. Two stars who know how to glide through tension without letting it stick to anyone else. In other words, the story behind the cameras sounds closer to business as usual than crisis mode. And what about Necip Memoli himself? After a long day under the lens of speculation, his explanation rolled out with disarming simplicity. It was a slip, a mistake, the kind of tap-and-swipe blip that happens when a person just wants to tidy their corner of the internet. He, too, leaned into the Zodiac joke that had already started trending, undercutting the intensity with a grin you could hear even if you only read the words. Was the timing odd? Certainly. When a show is soaring and characters are finding their audience in deeper ways every week, any hint of a shift hits louder than it deserves. But odd timing doesn't automatically equal a secret plot. It might just be the unfortunate overlap between a private moment and a public obsession. One detail fans didn't miss, the quiet but unmistakable presence of Barış Arduç in this whole conversation. He didn't sermonize or put out a carefully scripted statement. He didn't need to. His reputation in the industry has long been that of a steady hand, professional, consistent, genuinely present for colleagues. On set, he's the baseline, the one who keeps the frequency smooth so that everyone else can play their part without static. In the flurry of comments and counter-comments, that unspoken steadiness is what makes the Elsen-Barış axis feel like a safe harbor. When they're in sync, storms lose their appetite. Now, pull the camera back with me. What do we actually have? An unfollow. Posts removed. A theory that ballooned into 100 versions of itself. A leading woman who diffused the tension with grace and a wink. A co-lead who turned steadiness into its own kind of statement. A castmate who clarified with a light touch. And a fanbase divided in the way fanbases always are, some ready to accept the simplest explanation, others convinced that every smoke trail means fire. But beyond the swirl, the work goes on. Scripts don't pause to chase gossip. Scenes don't shoot themselves. The world of Eşref Rüya keeps unfolding, the way it should, inside that sacred space where storytelling matters more than headlines. There's also the conversation about management and strategy that can't be ignored. The way Elçin handles these flare-ups, without escalation, without playing the martyr, with just enough humor to reset the room, has turned her into the person producers want when the stakes are high. Whether it's her own instinct or a careful plan guided by experienced heads at Yıldız Management, the outcome is the same. She moves with a calm that feels contagious. That's the kind of presence that stabilizes a set, reassures partners, and converts uncertainty into momentum. In this industry, that's a superpower. And still, that album question hangs in the air with a sweetness that won't go away. What if she does it? What if, somewhere between call times and costume fittings, she slips into the studio, finds the right musicians, the right sound, and offers the audience another side of herself. Why not wasn't a promise, but it was an invitation of sorts. A reminder that artists are allowed to widen their horizons when they're ready. Those who cheer for her aren't just clapping for potential, they're clapping for patience. They're saying, take your time, do it your way, we'll be here when the melody arrives. So where does that leave us on the question that started all of this? Girdle, the character we've all grown attached to. If current signals mean anything, he's not going anywhere. Storylines can twist, characters can stumble, but nothing suggests a farewell is around the corner. And that's the other lesson here. Sometimes the biggest scandal is the one that evaporates after a deep breath. Yes, fans were rattled. Yes, the phones were hot. But when the talking stops and the camera slate claps, fiction takes the lead again, and the rest is echo. Was this week a crisis or a stress test? Maybe a little of both. It measured how fast rumor can sprint and how effectively clarity can walk it back. It showed us what happens when an ensemble's chemistry gets questioned by accident, and how that same ensemble can settle the question simply by showing up and doing the work. It reminded us that Elsen Sangu doesn't need a soapbox to own the room, and that Barış doesn't need to raise his voice to steady it. It even gave Necip Memeli a chance to flip a frenzy into a grin. In the end, the scoreboard looks like this: Eşref Rüya is still humming, Girdle is still in play, and this couple, Elçin and Barış, managed to turn noise into narrative without breaking a sweat. Now it's your turn. Do you believe a harmless profile cleanup can blow up into this on its own? Are you convinced timing was just bad luck, or do you suspect there's more than meets the eye? Did the Zodiac joke read as levity or code? And the music question. Should Elsen dive into an album soon, or keep that treasure stored until the perfect moment? Tell us everything. We'll spotlight the sharpest takes in our next drop. If you're riding with us through every twist, make sure you're subscribed to Turkish series stars, hit that like, and keep your notifications on, because the set lights may dim, but the story never sleeps. The Tempest always starts with a whisper, and we'll be here when the whisper turns into the next headline. Until then, breathe, watch, and remember, behind the roar of speculation, the real show is still rolling, one scene at a time.